High Desert State Prison. C Block, general population.
11:30 Uhr am.
The Chow Hall was a deafening cathedral of concrete and rage. It smelled of boiled cabbage, industrial disinfectant, and the metallic tang of fear. To a civilian, the noise was chaotic. A wall of shouting, clanging trays, and heavy boots. But to Marcus Mose Washington, it was music. He knew the rhythm. He knew that when the volume dipped for a microsecond, a shank was about to go into a kidney. He knew that when the laughter got too loud, someone was masking a plan. Marcus was 68 years old. He moved with the slow, deliberate grace of a tortoise that had survived a century of predators. He wore his state-issued blues pressed and neat, his white hair close-cropped, his face a roadmap of deep lines carved by 40 years inside the California penal system. He wasn't big. He wasn't loud. In the ecosystem of high desert, he looked like prey, a fish ready to be eaten by the sharks. He stood in the serving line, holding his plastic tray with both hands. He didn't look left or right. He practiced the gray man technique, being so uninteresting that the eye simply slides off you. Behind him, the line was bunching up. A group of 5 young inmates, young bloods, were making a scene. They were loud, sagging their pants low, flashing gang signs, and aggressively bumping into people. They were the new generation of the Royal Kings, a gang that controlled the drug trade in C Block. The leader was a 22-year-old kid named Tyrell T-Bone Jenkins. T-Bone had muscles that looked inflated with bicycle pumps, a grill of gold teeth, and a teardrop tattoo that was still scabbing over. He had been in prison for 6 months. He thought he owned the place. "Move it, Gramps," T-Bone shouted, shoving Marcus in the back. "You walking in slow motion? I got business to handle." Marcus didn't stumble. He absorbed the shove, adjusted his footing, and stepped forward to receive his scoop of mystery meat. "Patience is a virtue, young man," Marcus said. His voice was like grinding gravel, low and rough. T-Bone laughed. It was a sharp, hyena-like sound. "Virtue? This ain't Sunday school, old head. This is the jungle. And you blocking the lions. The violation." Marcus walked to a table in the far corner. It was neutral ground. For 10 years, Marcus had sat at that specific seat, facing the door, a habit you never lose. The older inmates, the lifers, knew this. Even the Aryan Brotherhood and the Mexican Mafia respected the invisible circle around Marcus. They didn't talk to him, but they didn't touch him. But T-Bone didn't know history. He only knew what he saw, a weak old man sitting at a good table. T-Bone strutted over, his crew flanking him like a pack of wolves. He slammed his tray down on the table right next to Marcus. "You in my seat, Pops," T-Bone said, leaning in. His breath smelled of stale tobacco and aggression. The Chow Hall went quiet. It happened in ripples. First the table next to them, then the one after. The shot callers, leaders of the other gangs, stopped eating. They watched. Big Herc, a massive leader of the Crips, shook his head slowly, whispering to his lieutenant, "Oh, that boy done messed up. He don't know." Marcus looked up from his food. He looked at T-Bone's eyes. He saw the insecurity there, the need to prove himself to his homies. "There are empty seats, son," Marcus said calmly. "Seat. Eat. We can break bread." "I don't break bread with fossils," T-Bone sneered. He reached out and slapped Marcus's tray. Clang. The tray flew off the table. Mashed potatoes and meat splattered across the floor. Marcus's cup of water soaked his pristine uniform. The silence in the hall was now absolute. Even the guards on the gantry tightened their grip on their pepper spray launchers. This was a violation. In prison, you can kill a man for less. Marcus sat still. He looked at the mess on the floor. Then he looked at his wet shirt. He didn't jump up. He didn't scream. He didn't swing. He slowly picked up his napkin and wiped a spot of gravy from his hand. "You have a lot of energy, Tyrell," Marcus said. He used the boy's government name, which surprised T-Bone. "Energy without direction is chaos. Chaos gets you buried." "You threatening me, old man?" T-Bone puffed his chest out. "I run C Block. I'm a royal king. We run this yard. What you gonna do? Cry to the COs. Marcus stood up. He was 5 inches shorter than T-Bone. I am going to go to my cell, Marcus said. I am going to change my shirt. And you are going to enjoy your lunch. While you can. Marcus walked away. He walked past the spilled food, past the laughing young bloods, past the stunned guards. He didn't look back. T-Bone shouted after him, "Yeah, walk away. Run back to your nursing home. This is MY house now." The young bloods high-fived. They felt like gods. They had just punked an OG and he did nothing. But at the next table, Old Man Rivers, a lifer who had been inside since 1985, looked at the spilled food and muttered, "Dead man walking. That boy is a dead man walking." The history lesson. T-Bone sat down, feeling the adrenaline pumping. He felt powerful. "Did you see that?" He bragged to his right-hand man, Lil Z. He folded like a lawn chair. "These old dudes are soft." Suddenly, a shadow fell over their table. It wasn't a guard. It was Hector El Diablo Ramirez, the shot caller for the Serenos, Mexican Mafia. Hector was a man who scared people just by breathing. He had scars on his neck that looked like zippers. "Hey, Pendejo," Hector said to T-Bone. T-Bone stiffened. "What you want, Diablo? We got no beef with the EM." "We do now," Hector said quietly. "You spilled food on my floor. You made a mess. I was just handling that old fool." T-Bone defended. "He disrespected the kings." Hector leaned in close. His eyes were cold, dead sharks. "You little idiot," Hector whispered. "Do you know who that old fool is? Just some wash-up. Marcus something." Hector laughed. It was a dry, rasping sound. "That is Marcus Washington. They call him the Architect. 40 years ago, in this very prison, he created the Royal Kings. He wrote your manifesto. He designed your bylaws. He is the reason you wear that crown tattoo on your neck." T-Bone froze. The blood drained from his face. "Nah, you lying. The founder is dead. Legend says he died in the riots of '95. "He didn't die," Hector said. "He ascended. He stepped back to let the young ones run the streets, while he ran the politics from the shadows. He has been retired for 10 years. He just wants to read his books and do his time. But you," Hector pointed a tattooed finger at T-Bone's chest. "You just threw food on the shoes of God." Hector straightened up. "My boss respects Marcus. The Aryan Brotherhood respects Marcus. The guards respect Marcus. You just declared war on the whole prison. Chico, good luck." Hector walked away. T-Bone sat there, his fork hovering halfway to his mouth. The food suddenly looked like ash. "He's bluffing," Lil Z whispered, but his voice shook. "Right, T? He's just trying to scare us." T-Bone looked at the empty corner where Marcus usually sat. "Yeah," T-Bone said, his voice cracking slightly. "Just bluffing. We run this. We the kings." The kite. Marcus sat in his cell on the bottom bunk. He had changed into a fresh shirt. His cellmate, a young kid named Dante, who was in for hacking and fraud, not violence, looked at him nervously. "Mose, the whole block is talking. They say T-Bone punked you. They say he's gonna come for your commissary next." Marcus was meticulously folding the wet shirt. "Dante," Marcus said softly, "do you know how to collapse a building?" "What?" "To bring down a skyscraper, you don't hit it with a hammer at the top. You find the structural weakness in the foundation. You plant a small charge. And you let gravity do the work." Marcus reached under his mattress. He didn't pull out a shank. He didn't pull out a phone. He pulled out a small, perfectly sharpened pencil and a piece of paper. He wrote 3 lines. He folded the paper into a tiny triangle. A kite. "Dante," Marcus said, "you work in the library distribution, yes?" "Yeah, Mose. Take this book to C Block, cell 402. Give it to Big Herc. Tell him I'm returning the book he lent me." Marcus slid the kite inside the pages of a worn-out copy of The Count of Monte Cristo. Dante looked at the book. "Big Herc? The Crip leader? But Mose, T-Bone is a king. If you go to the Crips, it's a gang war. Marcus smiled. It was the first time Dante had seen him smile. It wasn't a nice smile. It was the smile of a wolf looking at a lamb. No war, Dante. This is internal affairs. Just deliver the book. Night count. 9 p.m. The lights dimmed. The prison settled into the nocturnal hum. Coughing, flushing toilets, distant shouting. In cell 205, T-Bone was pacing. He couldn't sleep. Hector's words were eating him alive. He founded the Kings? No way.
Yo te.
Lil Z whispered from the top bunk. Relax. We got 20 soldiers in this block. Old man is alone. If he tries anything, we rush him in the shower. Yeah, T-Bone muttered. Yeah, we rush him. Suddenly, T-Bone heard a sound.
Top. Top. Top.
It was coming from the pipes. The plumbing system was the prison's internet. They used Morse code or specific rhythmic banging to send messages between cells. Then, a voice echoed from the vent. It wasn't a whisper. It was a chant. Low, rhythmic, coming from multiple cells at once. The king is dead. Long live the king. T-Bone rushed to the bars. Who said that? Shut the hell up. Then, a piece of paper slid under his cell door. It wasn't a kite. It was a page torn from a royal king's rulebook, the original Bible written in the 80s. T-Bone had never seen the original, only copies of copies. The handwriting was elegant, old-school cursive. He picked it up. It was Article 15 of the gang's code. Respect the architect. The penalty for treason is excommunication. The penalty for touching the crown is death. At the bottom of the page, in fresh ink, was a simple drawing. A chess king fallen on its side. And a time. 7 o'clock. The yard. T-Bone crushed the paper in his fist. He realized then that the prison walls weren't protecting him from the outside world. They were locking him in with something ancient. Marcus was awake in his cell. He wasn't sleeping. He was doing push-ups. One-handed. Slow. Controlled. 98. 99. 100. He stood up, not even breathing hard. He looked at his reflection in the polished steel mirror. The gray man was gone. The architect was back. High Desert State Prison. The main yard.
7 Uhr am.
The morning fog in High Desert was thick enough to choke on. It rolled off the Sierra Nevada mountains, wrapping the prison yard in a cold, gray shroud. The concrete was damp. The air smelled of wet asphalt and impending violence. When the electronic buzzer screamed, signaling the start of yard time, the steel doors of C-Block ground open. Hundreds of men poured out. To an outsider, it looked like a random stream of inmates. To the initiated, it was military deployment. The Serenos claimed the handball courts. The Aryan Brotherhood took the weight pit. The Crips and Bloods patrolled the basketball hoops. And there, in the center of the yard, sitting alone on a concrete bench, was Marcus Mose Washington. He wasn't hiding. He wasn't flanked by bodyguards. He was reading a book, The Art of War by Sun Tzu. He turned a page with a calm, rhythmic swish, completely ignoring the chaos around him. T-Bone stepped onto the yard. He was surrounded by his Praetorian Guard, 8 young bloods, all pumped up on adrenaline and prison wine, Pruno. They looked fierce. They had shanks tucked in their waistbands and socks filled with batteries in their pockets. There he is, T-Bone spat, pointing at the solitary figure on the bench. Sitting there like he owns the sun. Let's go. T-Bone marched across the yard. His heart was hammering against his ribs. He expected Marcus to run. He expected him to beg. But Marcus didn't even look up. The check. T-Bone stopped 3 feet from the bench. His shadow fell over Marcus's book. You got a death wish, old man? T-Bone barked. I told you, this is MY Yard. You don't summon me. I summon you. Marcus marked his page with a small piece of string and closed the book. He looked up. His eyes were clear, unclouded by fear. Good morning, Tyrell, Marcus said pleasantly. Did you sleep well? I imagine the plumbing was noisy last night. T-Bone's jaw tightened. Cut the cryptic crap. You disrespected the crown yesterday. You threw a kite at me with threats. Now you gonna pay the tax. T-Bone snapped his fingers. Boys, handle him. This was the moment. The violence. But nothing happened. T-Bone waited for the sound of boots hitting flesh. He waited for Lil Z to jump. Silence. T-Bone turned around. I said, handle him. His crew, Lil Z, K-Dog, and the others were standing there. But they weren't looking at Marcus. They were looking past him. They were looking at the perimeter of the yard. T-Bone followed their gaze. Standing by the weight pit, arms crossed, was Big Herc, the shot caller for the Crips. Standing by the handball courts was Hector El Diablo, the Sereno chief. Standing by the pull-up bars was Iron Mike, the leader of the Aryan Brotherhood. They weren't fighting each other. They were all looking at T-Bone. It was a United Nations of prison power. And they were all silent. What is this? T-Bone whispered, his voice trembling. Why are the OGs watching? Because, Marcus said, slowly standing up. I invited them. It is rude to have a coronation without witnesses. The collapse. Marcus took a step toward T-Bone. You think being a king is about muscles, Tyrell? You think it's about who yells the loudest? Marcus shook his head. Power is not noise. Power is logistics. Marcus pointed to the library building in the distance. Who do you think runs the supply chain for the library books? Tyrell? T-Bone blinked. What? Who cares about books? Everyone cares, Marcus said, because inside the spines of those hardcover books is how the Serenos get their messages to the streets. It's how the Brotherhood moves their sports betting slips. It's how Big Herc gets the Suboxone strips for his crew. Marcus tapped his own chest. I have run the library distribution for 15 years. I am the valve. I control the flow of information. Yesterday, because you decided to spill my food and make a scene, the warden ordered a shakedown of the library. He thought there was a riot brewing. Marcus's voice dropped to a dangerous whisper. Because of you, the Serenos lost 3 weeks of orders. The Brotherhood lost their betting slips for the Super Bowl. Big Herc lost his supply. Marcus spread his arms. You didn't just disrespect me, son. You cost every major gang in this prison money. You stopped the commerce. T-Bone looked around. The United Nations of gang leaders were stepping closer. The circle was tightening.
Lil Z.
T-Bone screamed at his right-hand man. Back me up. We're the kings. We ride or die. Lil Z looked at T-Bone. Then he looked at Marcus. Lil Z took a step back. Sorry, T. The young gangster mumbled. Business is business. My brother on the outside. He needs that money transfer. You traitor. T-Bone lunged at Z, but he was stopped by a heavy hand on his shoulder. It was Big Herc. The Crip leader had moved silently like a tank. Sit down, young blood, Herc rumbled, before I fold you into a suitcase. T-Bone collapsed onto the concrete bench. He was hyperventilating. His entire world, his ego, his gang, his power had evaporated in 60 seconds. The court-martial. Marcus remained standing. He looked like a judge in blue denim. In 1982, Marcus began, addressing the gathered crowd of young inmates, I wrote the charter for the Royal Kings. Article 1, we protect the commerce. Article 2, we move in silence. Marcus looked down at T-Bone. You broke every rule. You were loud. You were reckless. You drew heat. You are not a king. You are a liability. Marcus turned to the other gang leaders. Gentlemen, Marcus nodded to Hector and Iron Mike. I apologize for the disruption in your business. The library will be operational again by noon. The leak has been plugged. Hector spat on the ground near T-Bone's feet. Gracias, architect. You handle your house. If you don't, we will burn it down. The other leaders walked away. They didn't need to see the rest. They knew how prison justice worked. Now it was just Marcus, T-Bone, and the circle of the Royal Kings, the very soldiers T-Bone thought he led. T-Bone looked up at Marcus. There were tears of rage and fear in his eyes. So what now, old man? T-Bone sneered, trying to save a shred of dignity. You gonna shank me? You gonna kill me over a tray of food? Marcus sighed. He looked disappointed. You still don't get it. Death is easy. Death is for soldiers. Marcus reached into his pocket. T-Bone flinched, but Marcus didn't pull out a weapon. He pulled out a toothbrush, a simple orange plastic toothbrush. He tossed it onto T-Bone's lap. I'm not going to kill you, Tyrell. That would make you a martyr. The young ones would put your name on a wall. Marcus leaned in close. You are stripped of your rank. You are excommunicated. That means no one talks to you. No one trades with you. You don't eat at the king's table. You don't sleep in the king's cell. Marcus pointed to the far corner of the yard, near the toilets. You see that spot? That's where you live now. You are going to clean. You are going to scrub the showers. You are going to shine shoes. T-Bone stood up, his fists clenched. I ain't scrubbing no toilets. I'm a killer. Marcus looked at Lil Z and the other young bloods. He says he won't do it. Lil Z didn't hesitate. He wanted to prove his loyalty to the real power. He sucker punched T-Bone in the jaw. Crack. T-Bone went down. The pack descended. It wasn't a killing frenzy. It was a checking. A brutal, physical reminder of who was in charge. Kicks to the ribs. Stomps to the thighs. Marcus watched for exactly 10 seconds. Enough, he said softly. The beatdown stopped instantly. T-Bone lay curled in a ball, bleeding from his mouth, his gold grill knocked loose. Marcus knelt beside him. You have a choice, Tyrell. You can check into protective custody, PC. You can go hide with the snitches and the child molesters. Or, Marcus picked up the toothbrush and placed it in T-Bone's shaking hand. You can take this, go to the showers and start scrubbing. If you scrub hard enough, maybe in 5 years, you'll learn what it means to be a man. Marcus stood up and smoothed his shirt. He looked at Lil Z. Z, you are acting lieutenant now. Keep the noise down. I want to read my book. Yes, sir. Yes, OG. Lil Z said, eyes wide with respect. Marcus picked up his copy of The Art of War. He walked back to his bench, sat down, and opened the page where he had left off. Around him, the prison yard returned to its normal rhythm. The basketballs bounced. The weights clanged. And in the corner, a fallen king began to crawl toward the showers, clutching a plastic toothbrush like it was the only thing keeping him alive. The aftermath. Later that night, Marcus was back in his cell. Dante, his cellmate, was staring at him like he was a wizard. Mose, you didn't even lift a finger. You took out the biggest bully in the block with a library book. Marcus was lying on his bunk, staring at the ceiling. I built this house, Dante, Marcus whispered. I know where every brick is, and I know which bricks are hollow. But Marcus knew something else. He knew that humiliation breeds a different kind of monster. T-Bone was broken, yes, but a broken dog bites harder. Marcus closed his eyes. He had won the battle. But the war wasn't over, because on the tier above them, the warden was watching the security footage. And the warden didn't like it when inmates had more power than him. Warden Miller's office. 24 hours after the yard incident. Warden Jonathan Miller was a man who hated two things: losing money and losing control. He stared at the CCTV monitor. On the screen, Marcus Washington was sitting in the library, stamping books. He looked peaceful. Miller hated him. Marcus ran the economy of the prison better than the administration did. The gangs listened to Marcus, not the guards. Bring him in, Miller said into his intercom. A few minutes later, the door opened. But it wasn't Marcus. 2 guards dragged in T-Bone. The young gangster looked like a wreck. His eye was swollen shut, his lips split. He smelled of bleach and toilet water. He had spent the last day scrubbing the communal showers while other inmates threw trash at him. Miller poured a glass of whiskey. He didn't offer any to T-Bone. You look like hell, son, Miller said, swirling the amber liquid. I want PC, T-Bone mumbled, his spirit broken. Put me in protective custody. They gonna kill me out there. Miller leaned forward. You went from a king to a janitor in 1 day. Embarrassing. But I can change that. I can transfer you. Not to PC. To a different prison. San Quentin. A fresh start. You can be a soldier again. T-Bone looked up, hope flickering in his battered eyes. What I gotta do? Miller slid a crude, jagged piece of metal across the mahogany desk. A shank made from a lawnmower blade. There's a riot planned for tomorrow. The Serenos are angry about the food quality. When the alarms go off, the cameras in the library will malfunction. For 5 minutes. Miller pointed at the screen at Marcus. The architect needs to retire permanently. You do this and you get your transfer. You fail, and I put you in a cell with the Aryan Brotherhood and tell them you're a snitch. T-Bone picked up the shank. His hand trembled, then steadied. Hate is a powerful fuel. He humiliated me, T-Bone whispered. I'll gut him. The library. The next day. 1400 hours p.m. The library was Marcus's sanctuary. It smelled of old paper and dust. Marcus was reshelving books in the legal section. He felt the vibration in the floor before he heard the sound. Thump, thump, scream. The riot started in B block and spread like a virus. Inmates set mattresses on fire. Smoke began to fill the corridors. The alarms blared. A deafening, rhythmic whoop-whoop. Lockdown. Everyone down. The PA system screamed. But the guards didn't lock the library doors. They retreated. The electronic locks clicked open. Marcus stopped shelving. He knew. He didn't run. He walked to the librarian's desk, sat down, and pulled a thick ledger from a hidden compartment. The double doors of the library swung open. T-Bone stood there. He was alone. The chaos of the riot was behind him. Smoke, screaming, violence. But T-Bone had tunnel vision. He held the shank in a white-knuckled grip. End of the line, old man, T-Bone shouted, stepping over the threshold. No guards. No big herc. Just you and me. Marcus looked at the young man. He looked at the hate in his eyes. The warden gave you that shank, didn't he? Marcus asked calmly. T-Bone froze for a second. Shut up. This is for me. You took my crown. Miller is using you, Tyrell. Just like he used the Serenos to start this riot. He cut their food rations to provoke them. He needs a distraction so he can erase me. I don't care. T-Bone lunged. He was fast. Youthful speed. But Marcus had survived 40 years of knife fights. He didn't block. He grabbed a heavy, hardcover law dictionary from the desk and swung it. Thud. The book connected with T-Bone's wrist. The shank flew out of his hand and skittered across the floor. T-Bone roared and tackled Marcus. The chair tipped over. They crashed to the floor. T-Bone was stronger, heavier. He wrapped his hands around Marcus's throat.
Die. Just die.
Marcus gasped for air. His vision blurred. He felt his windpipe compressing. He reached out, his hand groping the floor. He found a pen. A simple ballpoint pen. He could have stabbed T-Bone in the eye. He could have killed him. Instead, Marcus jammed the pen into the pressure point under T-Bone's armpit. T-Bone screamed and recoiled, his arm going numb. Marcus rolled away, coughing. He stood up, unsteady but upright. T-Bone scrambled for the shank. He grabbed it. He stood up, ready to charge again. Look at the book, Marcus shouted. His voice was a command, booming through the library. T-Bone hesitated. What? Marcus kicked the ledger he had pulled from the desk toward T-Bone. It slid across the floor and stopped at the boy's feet. Open it, Marcus rasped. Read the last page. T-Bone, confused and panting, looked down. Curiously, he flipped the ledger open with his foot. It wasn't a library record. It was a log of numbers, bank accounts, dates, and names. Inmate Jenkins, Tyrell. Payment, transfer to San Quentin. Service, liquidation of inmate Washington. He wrote it down? T-Bone whispered. Why? Because Miller is arrogant, Marcus said, regaining his breath. But that book isn't Miller's. It's mine. I track everything. I know where Miller launders the money he steals from the prison budget. I know who he pays off. Marcus took a step closer. Tyrell, think. If you kill me, do you really think Miller will transfer you? You are the loose end. As soon as I am dead, the guards will come in here and shoot you. They will say you started the riot. You are a walking corpse. T-Bone looked at the door. He looked at the shank. He looked at Marcus. The rage was fading, replaced by the cold realization of the trap. "So what do we do?" T-Bone asked, his voice sounding like a child's. "We're trapped." Marcus adjusted his glasses. "We don't do anything. We wait." The raid. Suddenly, the windows of the library exploded inward. Crash. Canisters of tear gas hissed across the floor. But it wasn't the prison sort team. Men in windbreakers with FBI in yellow letters stormed through the smoke. "Federal agents. Drop the weapons." T-Bone dropped the shank and put his hands up. Marcus stood calmly by the desk. The agents didn't tackle Marcus. One of them, a tall man in a suit, walked up to him. "Mr. Washington?" "Agent Henderson." Marcus nodded. "I believe you received the package I sent via the library mail truck?" "We did," the agent said. "The ledger." Marcus pointed to the book on the floor. "Right there. It details Warden Miller's embezzlement scheme, his payments to gang leaders, and his solicitation of murder. The fall of the warden. 5 minutes later, the riot was quelled. But the real drama was in the administration building. Warden Miller was watching the library feed, waiting for Marcus to die. Instead, he saw FBI agents securing the scene. His door burst open. "Jonathan Miller, you are under arrest for racketeering, conspiracy to commit murder, and fraud." As they walked Miller out in handcuffs, he passed the library. Marcus was being escorted out by a medic to check his bruises. Their eyes met. Miller looked destroyed. Marcus looked bored. "Checkmate," Marcus mouthed. Epilogue, the transfer. 2 weeks later. The prison yard was quiet. T-Bone was sweeping the basketball court. He wasn't a king anymore, but he wasn't cleaning toilets either. He was just a guy doing his time. The kings had stripped him of his rank, but because he didn't kill Marcus, he was allowed to live. He looked up. Marcus was walking toward the gate. He was dressed in civilian clothes, a gray suit, old-fashioned but sharp. Marcus had negotiated a deal with the feds. In exchange for the evidence against the warden and the dismantling of the corruption ring, his sentence was commuted to time served. After 40 years, the architect was going home. He stopped by the gate. He looked at T-Bone. T-Bone stopped sweeping. He stood up straight. He didn't bow. He didn't look away. He nodded. A small, respectful nod. "Safe travels, OG," T-Bone whispered. Marcus nodded back. He walked through the gate. The heavy steel doors buzzed and clanked shut behind him. Marcus stepped out into the parking lot. The sun was shining. The air didn't smell of bleach. It smelled of sagebrush and gasoline. A black sedan was waiting. Marcus got in. He didn't look back at the prison. The structure had served its purpose. He had survived it. He had mastered it. And now he had left it. Inside the prison, on the table in the library, lay a single book. The Count of Monte Cristo. Inside the cover, a handwritten note. "To Tyrell, education is the only crown they can't take away. Read." The end.